everybody, and welcome back to Red Devils TV. Now, players that I would bring into the summer and players who I think should go. This is a video that I've had on the bucket list for a while now, and I never know when the right time is to make this video. And probably as the summer approaches, I'll probably make this video again because my opinion might change. A new superstar might come out of the ranks and United might be linked to them. But right now, based in this current time, on the 27th of February 2023, just players that I think should come to Manchester United and players who I think should leave. So let's just get right into the video. So we'll talk about the outgoings first because I feel like that's the most important thing to talk about. So number one, unfortunately, I'm gonna have to say Anthony Martial. Now, Anthony Martial, when he's fit, brilliant striker. He's very, very controversial in our fan base. But I've said it once and I'll say it again. He's built like a poppadom. Like, the injuries he's been getting is just... it's just impossible. I don't know how someone so frail has... I know he's always had injuries. He's always been out for at least a certain part of time during a season. But to literally be out for majority of the season, I think I saw a stat where he's not played 85% of United's games this season, and you can have a really good striker in Martial who's constantly injured, or you can have a player like Weghorst who isn't as good as Martial but is consistently fit. I know which striker I'm going for, and that's Weghorst, because you want a player who's available. You want a player who's always going to be an option. And for me, Martial isn't that. So I think it's time for United to part ways with Anthony Martial. And he's going to be a hard player to sell, to be honest, because no matter what we do, who's going to want to buy a frail poppadom? Like, do you know what I mean? Maybe he'll go abroad. I'm not too sure, but only time will tell. But for me, Anthony Martial, I wish you all the best, but for me, I feel like you should no longer be at this football club. And that's nothing against you. I just feel like your time's up. That's all I have to say. Number two is probably one that I actually feel uncomfortable saying, but Harry Maguire. And I saw when we won against the Carabao Cup yesterday, when we won the Carabao Cup, I saw what it meant to Maguire to lift that trophy. And I just think that with the minimum game time he's had and the little impact he brings on the team, I think it's time for him to go. And I think he would be brilliant at a team like Villa or Everton, or a mid-table team is what I'm trying to say. A team that, you know, is standard mid-table and have a future. And I do think Aston Villa would probably be a good side for Harry Maguire to end up at. Maybe even a Brentford, maybe partner up with Ben Mee, or a Fulham, like Spurs. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, these teams that are above mid-table, should I say. So between 6th and 10th, I think where Maguire belongs, because I think he's a good player. I just think that he just doesn't belong in this United setup. I think it's always been a struggle with Harry Maguire, especially that price tag. And unfortunately, it hasn't worked out. So for me, you could get about 30 million for Harry Maguire. And I just think that it's time for United and Harry Maguire to part ways. Number three, Dean Henderson. Now, for me, Dean Henderson, there was this brief period in the Ollie era where where David De Gea just wasn't performing well. And Dean Henderson got his chance and everyone raved about him. And I'll admit, I was one of them fans. And I think it was right. David De Gea wasn't performing well when Dean Henderson first came into the squad. He had a great loan spell with Sheffield United the season before. And Dean Henderson felt confident enough to be United's number one, or push for United's number one. Thankfully, that never continued because David De Gea is back to his best now. And for me, Dean Henderson, with the ego he's got, I mean, I remember the quotes he came out with at the start of the season when he joined Nottingham Forest about how he felt betrayed by Manchester United, about how he felt disrespected, betrayed. I've just said that. And I just think that from when I've seen him play for Nottingham Forest this season, obviously he's currently out injured, But when I've seen him play for Nottingham Forest, yes, he's having to make lots and lots of saves and he is doing very, very well. But I think for the ego he's got, one, he doesn't suit Erik ten Hag's team. And two, I just think that he would be a bad player to have as our... If I think for a number 2, he would be great. But Dean Henderson wants first team football. He wants to be the main guy. He wants to be in the England setup. And unfortunately, that's not going to be the case in my opinion. And I think that it's best for United to cash out now and just get what we can for Dean Henderson. Another player, it's more like these little players now. So I'm going to say players like Brandon Williams, Axel Tuanzebe, Phil Jones. They're like honourable mentions, like players that we know need to go. But I'm talking about players that need to cash out now. And another player is number 4 on the list, is Donny van de Beek. Now, when Donny van de Beek first came to Manchester United, I was excited. I mean, the season before we got him, he was in the Ballon d'Or nominations. I think he came 28th in that category. And he had a brilliant season for Ajax. And I was excited when we signed the player. But it just hasn't worked out. I did have a bit of hope when Erik ten Hag came to Manchester United. He might use Van de Beek. But again, that wasn't the case. Van de Beek has briefly been used. And I feel really sorry for Donny. But again, his time's up at Manchester United. And I think it just makes you think that how much players we need to get rid of. And Van de Beek, for me, great squad player, but he just doesn't had his chance. And this is no hate. And just before I clarify, all the players on this list, I don't hate. I don't not like. I just think that it's best for Manchester United and the players for them to part ways. That's just my opinion. But yeah, Donny van de Beek, I think his time is up at Manchester United. And yeah, that's just all I can say, really. Donny's just... yeah, that's all I have to say, really. I think it just speaks for itself. And the 5th player, I'm trying to think, have I got a 5th player? And I'm stuck between 2 because I wanted to keep it to 5 players minimum for outgoings and incomings. And I was stuck between Anthony Elanga and Scott McTominay. And I feel like Anthony Elanga is the one I'm going to go for. Because Anthony Elanga, yes, he's a good player. But I think that he's, what now, 20? Coming up to 21. I know that's still young as a player. But Garnacho's ahead of him. Palestri's ahead of him. And I think that he's been overhyped. United's minimum transfer activity in the past is especially with Ralf Rangnick last season, about how he had no extra players and he pretty much forced Anthony Elanga to come through the youth setup. It's been frustrating for Anthony Elanga and he's had his moments, but I just think that going forward for being an Erik ten Hag player, Anthony Elanga has to go. But that's just my opinion. Now, this is the video I'm excited to make because incomings. Now, for me, incomings are what makes the summer transfer window exciting. And for me, I mean, I've already put him on the thumbnail. And the first player I want to come in is Dusan Vlahovic. Now, I don't know why I said it like that, but Dusan Vlahovic is a brilliant, brilliant striker. And it's between him or Osimhen. And personally, I would prefer Vlahovic because he's just bigger, stronger, and he's younger as well. So I think that's, and especially with the situation Juventus are in, I think that'd be a more realistic deal that we can do over Victor Osimhen at Napoli, because Napoli are excelling the Serie A this season. And for me, Victor Osimhen, even though he's a class striker, and I think he's currently just edges Vlahovic, for me, Dusan Vlahovic would be amazing for Manchester United, and I would snatch him up 100%. My second player is a backup goalkeeper, and the thing is that if it was me and David De Gea was to go, I'd be confident in saying I'd like a player like Kobel. Because Kobel, for me, at Dortmund, I don't know if you know about him, but Kobel is a goalkeeper for Dortmund, and I rate him so highly. I think he's a brilliant goalkeeper, and I just think that like I said, I think he's just brilliant. So I think that as a first team goalkeeper, I would be bringing in Kobel. But for a second goalkeeper, I'd go for someone like what's his name now? I'd go for a player like Raya at Brighton. I think he's been playing really well. And then there's a player at Embole. I think it's Vicario is his name. And he's young. He's a good goalkeeper. And I think that United need to invest in a young upcoming goalkeeper. And I know Raya for Brighton, for Brentford, is 26, nearly 27. So he's not too young, but I think he reminds me of what was that goalkeeper called, that Argentinian goalkeeper, Sergio Romero. That he was a brilliant number 2 goalkeeper, and I think a player like Raya or Vicario would do really well for Manchester United. Centre half, I will go for Kim Min-jae, because for me, Kim Min-jae is... I've just explained it with Napoli. I know he's going to cost a lot, but for me, Kim Min-jae is a brilliant centre-back. And the fact that Napoli bought him for what I think it was like pennies, like it was like 12 quid then, like 12 million or something I think they bought him for. So they make massive profit, but I think Kim Min-jae would be a solid centre-half for United to sign. As well as I'm going to give an honourable mention to a player that we were linked to last season, which was Timber. Now, for me, Timber is a good centre-back, but could we sign Timber as a number 1? Because even though people said Martinez was too short to be in the Premier League, Rafael Varane, and Martinez are the perfect partnership. So you need a centre-back coming in that will accept to be a bench player or to come on when needed. And I think Kim Min-jae will be able to do that. I don't think Timber would, because I think Timber loves that first team football. So, but I would like to see Jurrien Timber at United. But again, this is just who I'd like to join Manchester United. Number 4 is a player that is controversial. So many people say Jude Bellingham, but I really want Frankie de Jong. And I think it says it for itself. Frankie de Jong, if you watched closely against the 2 legs against Barcelona, United just won in the Europa League. Frankie de Jong for me was Barcelona's best player on that pitch. Ignore Gavi, ignore Pedri, ignore Lewandowski. For me, Frankie de Jong was brilliant, and I just rate him so highly. And I would love him to be in that Erik ten Hag system. Casemiro, Bruno Fernandes and Frankie de Jong would be illegal. It would be brilliant to see, and I would fucking love to see it. But, sorry for my language, but yeah. And then, I'm trying to think, do we need a new number 10? Because I was going to say another striker, because I feel like we do need that extra option. And do we, I am going to also say as well, I think I've just completely gone out of focus there. I do think, though, that with Sabitzer and Weghorst, I'd sign him. And I know Weghorst is controversial, as well as Sabitzer is. But the way they're playing, I think they bring a lot to the squad. And I think that risking players in the summer who haven't gelled, I think that it would help a lot. So I would sign Sabitzer and Weghorst, I think. Weghorst would be a great number 2 forward, and I think Sabitzer would be a great replacement in the midfield. Because I think that if we signed Frankie de Jong and signed Sabitzer, Frankie de Jong would be the main midfielder. And I think that Sabitzer would also be would help out when Frankie de Jong doesn't play. Because I think that as well, Fred... I don't know how Fred's getting ahead of Sabitzer, to be honest, but, Fred's Fred. He's had one of the most weirdest careers any Manchester United player's had. So yeah, I just want to just say that I think that they're the players that I would sign. And I think as well with a player like Eriksen. Now, Eriksen was on my list for outgoings because I don't rate Eriksen. I think he's a good player, but I think defensively he's a liability. And that's just my opinion. But I think Eriksen deserves an extra year, is what I'm saying. But for a number 10, would I sign anyone? I'm really trying to think. I can't think because for me I feel like Bruno Fernandes is brilliant and the perfect number 10. But I'm just trying to think of a number 10 because for me I feel like the position of the number 10 is dying, and I think players like Bruno Fernandes and Ødegaard is what's keeping that position alive. But I'm just trying to think of a young number 10 that could come through the ranks and help out. And off the top of my head, I actually can't think of anyone. So, like I said, I'm going to make this video in the future. And maybe my opinion changes, maybe it doesn't. But hopefully at this point in time, I will have a more clear and understanding of players that would be maybe better or worse for Manchester United. Maybe my opinion changes on certain players that I said are outgoings or incomings. Who knows? But yeah, thank you for watching today's video. Please remember to like, subscribe, comment and share. And I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.